Hi, my name is Austin. Today I'm going to be presenting on biologic and chemical agents. Alright, so first things first, what are they? Biologic agents are living organisms that cause diseases. The three or four main ones that I could think of are bacteria, viruses, toxins, and fungals. On the other hand, chemical agents are toxic chemicals that cause harm through ingestion and skin contact. Some common ones are cyanide poisoning or carbon monoxide poisoning. Some things you might get from like a fire, things like smoke inhalation, things like that. So the main difference between the two, I would say, is onset of symptoms. So with a chemical agent, the onset can only be a few minutes or even quicker than that. So maybe a few seconds. Like a chemical burn, if you were to come in contact with a chemical, it could burn your arm, eye, wherever it hits, like right away, and you'll feel the effects of it. On the other hand, with biological agents, the onset of symptoms can take hours to weeks. It all depends on what kind of infection you got, if it's bacterial, viral, all that stuff. And the example I provided was bacteria like E. coli. And an example I've also put for chemical agents would be cyanide poisoning. So this article from Madsen brings up a good point. It says that the symptom exposures from the chemical and biological agents can be similar in certain cases, so it is important to know the differences. And we're going to get into those differences in the next slide. We just need to know the differences so you know how to treat them and what precautions to put into place, etc., things like that. Alright, so the main comparisons and differences, for starters, the onset that we just talked about. Biological agents is delayed, chemical is quicker. So with biological agents, they're contagious. They can spread from person to person, from contact, coughing, droplet, and that's, depending on how they spread, is what precautions we set into place. And precautions is the biggest thing with these. We're going to talk more about the precautions later because of how important it is, but that's the main thing. On the other hand, chemical agents, they're usually not contagious. They're just like, if you were to contract a chemical burn, you can't spread that to someone else. So with biological agents, they're treated with antibiotics and antivirals. Antibiotics are used to treat bacterial infections, antivirals are used to treat viral infections, and it's not on here, but antifungals are for fungal infections, etc. With chemical agents, it's treated with decontamination or antidotes. So the one I can think off the top of my head, if you were to get magnesium toxicity, which is like, it's a medication, but it's a chemical, right? We learned that the antidote of that is calcium gluconate. It all depends on what the chemical or medication, whatever it is, on how it's treated. Alright, moving on to BSN essentials. The main thing with this is population health, in my opinion, and safety, of course. Safety is always important. But with population health, we want to worry about health promotion and illness prevention. So biological agents can spread from person to person. So we just want to make sure that measures are put into place to prevent it from spreading. And then nurses provide care during pandemics and epidemics. So in recent history, I think what everyone can think of is COVID. COVID was an extremely insane time period. It was a pandemic from a viral infection, the coronavirus. And that was spread. That was an airborne thing, so we had to set in airborne precautions, right? So everybody had their own rooms and all that. Basically, nurses went in and had to risk their own health just to take care of all these other patients with this virus. Moving on to quality and safety, nurses attend to work environment hazards like these agents. COVID, for example, they had to attend work. And then we prevent transmission through set precautions. So, like I said, with COVID, we have to put in these airborne precautions just to make sure that it's not spread to the nurses or any other patients. Like, we're always taking care of sick patients. So, and then contact precautions is another popular one. A lot of patients get C. diff. That's a popular contact precaution of illness or diagnosis. Moving on to QC and competencies, we got to provide education about the precaution, and we got to respect the patient's fears. This is a very scary time. Patients are sick. We have to make sure that they feel safe under our care. Safety, nurses must protect themselves and other patients to recognize early signs of exposure. We have to make sure that we're also safe when taking care of these patients. For my reflection question, if a widespread exposure to a chemical or biologic agent were to happen tomorrow, would you feel prepared to care for those affected? Why or why not? All right, these are my references.